It's been 1 year since today's guest's last confession. That's how I'm starting today's episode because 2025 was the year supply chain executives had to make a choice. They could sit tight and wait or take a calculated risk in uncertain times. Here's the confession you are going to hear from my guest today. And that is that retailers are holding more inventory than ever, not because they want to, but because they're afraid. They're spending a third of their warehouse labor on managing spreadsheets and manual planning. And despite billions in automation investment, many are still flying blind. Because 2025 wasn't the year of innovation, it was the year of survival. Today, we're going to talk about what that really means and what comes next. Welcome to Confessions of a Supply Chain Executive, the podcast where we get brutally honest about the challenges, failures, and celebrate the victories in retail supply chains. I'm your host, Chris Walton, and today we're going to take a hard look at 2025, a year that today's confessor is calling vanilla. But vanilla doesn't mean simple. It means executives are paralyzed by uncertainty, making incremental moves while their competitors do the same. My guest today is Kim Baudry, Market Director at Dematic, one of the world's leading providers of warehouse automation and logistics solutions. Kim is a longtime friend of the show. We have interviewed her numerous times in the past, and every year we start the year off by getting her pulse on the state of supply chain automation and investment. Kim, welcome to Confessions of a Supply Chain Executive. It has been 1 year since your last confession, has it not?
Yes. Yep. Like I said, I have a little bit of trauma when you use the word confession, but yeah, about that, I guess, Chris. We
Yeah,
tend to like to talk to each other in January and February to get
yeah,
an
we do.
update for the year.
We do. Yes, the recovering Catholic in both of us we get a little scared when we use that term. But hey, there's no Hail Marys and Our Fathers with this one, Kim. No Hail Marys
Thank
and Our
you.
Fathers. All right, well, let's get right to it. And I'm not going to sugarcoat this at all. In discussing, and planning today's interview with you, you called 2025, for lack of a better way to put it, quote unquote, vanilla. That's not exactly the word most people would use to describe their industry, which is why we love having you on the show because you're frank and candid. So walk us through like why that happened. What were the biggest takeaways when you look back at 2025?
So I think that we wouldn't have called the year 2021 and 2022 vanilla.
No.
After, right? It was not vanilla. 23, 24, 25 were what I think kind of just the industry, everybody's just trying to keep up with all of the changes going around them, trying to come up with a plan. They're trying to operate in an environment where interest rates are high. There just hasn't been a lot of exciting things going on in the material handling industry. Supply chain and logistics, there's a lot of movement and trying to figure out where I'm going to get product from. That continues to be in flux. But I think I use the word vanilla because there wasn't a lot of new innovation. Everybody's just treading water, I guess, is more of a way of putting it. Our customers are treading water and trying to deal with constant change.
It's funny when you brought up 2021 and 2020 and 2022. Like, I'm curious what flavor of ice cream that was. Neapolitan? I don't know. Like,
It's
Kim, what
that
do you
or
say?
Superman, maybe Superman, or the one where you have Pop Rocks, and I can't remember this one.
Pop rocks. Right. Bubble gum.
Yeah,
Um,
bubblegum.
Yeah, all right, but I think it's actually a very good analogy because yeah, I think it was those years were like that, and now it's just everything's kind of slowed down to a degree. So I'm curious, what in your mind was what's been driving that? If you were to point to main themes that have led to that outcome, how would you summarize that? What are the factors that have been leading to you calling it vanilla, basically?
I think in 23 and 24, it was the discussion around access to money, to capital, right?
Okay,
Continued high interest rates
high
globally.
interest rates.
Yeah. When you look at 25 and into this year, it's really when we just finished a voice of customer survey that we do pretty much every year. That's a global VOC. And the biggest response was the geopolitical uncertainty
Mm.
that is impacting our customers. So not knowing, we have the discussion around tariffs, we have the discussion of interrupted supply chains, where, we can't get a product from a certain area. So those things are kind of that mixed with the interest rate conversation. is elevated to the top of the customer's concerns, and how do they manage in that volatile environment, and continue to do so.
Kim, I'm curious too. Is there any difference in when you say the investment climate and particularly pointing to interest rates too? Is it the same globally? Is there the same hesitance globally, or do you see
Mm,
differences from the United States, say relative to Europe or Asia Pacific as well?
yeah, we're close, but the Americas is feeling a little bit even more uncertain when we interviewed the people. They came through with a higher rating of geopolitical uncertainty and supply chain uncertainty, as opposed to Europe and APAC. But, you know, yeah, so slight difference.
Slight difference. Yeah, that
I
well
think we
makes
should
sense.
poll again in another 3 months, though. It could it changes a lot. So
Yeah, it probably changed in the moment that, in the just the time frame that we
I
picked
know,
recording this podcast for
I
the first
know.
4 minutes of today. But I'm curious. Okay, so geopolitical uncertainty, high interest rates, just a lot of things in flux, in that regard. I'm curious too. Like, are you were you seeing it? Did your survey say anything else in terms of like the customer's expectations?
Oh,
How retailers are approaching their supply chain strategically.
mhm.
What else came out from the survey?
Yeah. Well, the continued, there's a couple continued conversations, which is we're having a lot of the uncertainty affecting our customers. And at the same time, their customers continue, and this has been a common theme I think you and I have talked about for a couple of years, is there continues to be these customer service levels, delivering at speed, delivering accurately, being able to have their customers shop wherever they want. Those service levels continue to increase year after year. We see that raising up, the percentage of people responding. That's one of the things they're really trying to solve for, continues to raise up the chart. So there's that, and there continues to be the customers in the retail market. So grocery, we know that grocery, general merchandise, apparel, continue with that effort to get product closer to the customer and using their retail inventory to do so. So seeing those two things, and again, that's all about meeting the customer where their customer where they're purchasing and the way they want to buy. In America, I think we talked about this too last year. Americans kind of think, I want to buy where I want to buy, when I want to buy, and I want it delivered and picked up whenever I want to. In Europe, um, they tend to have windows that they're offered from the supplier. Like you can get your order, but it's going to be at this time of the day, or you can pick it up at this time of the day. So there's some differences, but in North America and even Canada, there's a lot of leeway to how a person can purchase things, and the retailers are addressing that and providing that freedom. So it's very difficult to manage, the retail inventory, the what's in the store, what isn't in the store, who's buying from my store and who am I shipping to their house. So a lot of complexity continuing to go on. So you have uncertainty, complexity, customer demand, all these things going on.
Right. And so, yeah, so basically what you're saying there is that the continued push towards e-commerce and particularly speed across the industry and setting the expectation for the American consumer, particularly that they can get things as fast and whenever they want, is continue to play a role in terms of how retailers navigate the situation, particularly with the other uncertainties that you already mentioned in mind. I'm curious too, Kim, does that impact like the inventory that the retailers are holding? Like, like how are the warehouses operating today versus how they were operating in the past?
Well, there's a couple things. So inventory levels, stock levels inside of the DCs are actually growing, um,
Okay.
because of the thing I need to have inventory to my forward stores, et cetera, inventory for e-commerce. But the biggest, I think, driver for that is the uncertainty of my supply chain and trying to mitigate supply chain risk. So we're seeing the level of amount of inventory, safety stock, and extra storage increasing year after year over the last few years. And I think we talked about it. We used to say, uh, before COVID, really, it
Hmm.
was, that was not the goal of most of our customers. They didn't want to have a lot of extra stock. So they had just in time concepts as opposed to now I say they have just in case. I need to have this inventory here. A, because I know I can buy it at this price today versus I don't know what my price will be in the future. And I don't know if I'm going to have some kind of interruption to being able to access that supply from a given region of the world. So those two things are increasing the need for increased inventory storage.
That's great. Just in time to just in case. Man, my heart goes out to the retailers that are trying to navigate all this
Oh
as we
yeah,
set this up, right? I mean, geez, I
yeah.
mean, could you throw more things at them? But so I'm curious then, so that was 2025. I thought you did a great
Mhm.
job outlining 2025 and all the factors that are kind of driving the vanilla, impression of the year. What about 2026? Like, is 2026 going to be more of the same, or are we going to finally see a light at the end of the tunnel when it comes to, how retailers look at their automation and their investments in their warehousing?
I don't think 2026 is going to be your
No,
year. I'm
no,
sorry. That's why I feel like this podcast is kind of like vanilla too. I'm sorry.
no. This podcast is spicy ice cream because we're getting to the root of the issues here, Kim. We're gonna spice it up here. But no,
Okay,
I mean, if
okay.
that's the way it is, that's the way it is. Like, and
Yeah,
that's why we do this podcast to speak the truth to people about how things are going.
yeah,
So yeah. So you think it's gonna be more of the same? So why
yeah.
is that?
Well, the studies that we've conducted, every year we also do, in addition to a voice of customer, we do a whole, what we call our market model refresh, which is indicating where is money being spent, how much money is planned to be spent on automation, software, and customer service types of offerings. And for the last 2 years, so 24, 25, we were kind of flatlining. And actually, we had a blip and we made a correction to the market model in 24, where the people that were interviewed, when all of that data was pulled together, we actually took a downturn. It dipped. Now we're kind of flatlining, 1% growth this year in automation spend
Hmm.
overall, which is nothing really.
Yeah.
So, it's not to say that there won't be, places where the automation is being purchased more, but as a general rule, we're seeing still another kind of flat year with indication that towards the end of 26 and going to 27, there will be some recovery, as it's expected that interest rates will continue to go down, for one thing. Um, I think the midterm elections have some things to do with the Americas, and maybe the world at this point. So, but knowing where we're going to come out and what to plan for going forward with tariffs and supply chain availability, but primarily the interest rate conversation gets a little bit better, is what our researcher tells us as we go into 27. So,
Mhm.
yeah. And I
That
also
makes
think
sense.
there's some things going on that, we don't typically think about for material handling equipment, but it's the introduction of AI, right? And how can AI, where will it fit in supply chain, in the distribution? And you're hearing a lot of conversations about how our customers are using AI to 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 engage with their customers where they're spent, where they're in their store or online or et cetera, right? But I think there's going to be some opportunities going into 27 for AI to touch the warehouse and the warehouse distribution center and the supply chain for sure. I think it's already doing it, but I think it's going to take off a little bit more next year.
And what makes you say that, Kim?
First of all, you need to get the products are going to have more maturity that are being offered. I think helping customers understand how they can use it to be manage their operations better, manage their inventory better, make decisions better. I think all of that it's a learning curve, I think right now is what it is. Like really vendors that have it and are able to share what they can do are still just getting to the place where they can describe what they're going to be able to do for our customers and then educating the market about what can be done. So I think there's some opportunities more like in the software side of things coming up, right? As opposed to maybe the mechatronics.
Great segue for me, actually. So, because basically what I'm hearing from you, net when you get down to it at the end of the day, is like there's a focus on, you know, being very judicious with how you're spending your money. So the retailers, especially those that are operating warehouses, are going to be focused on things like labor efficiency and throughput and
Yep.
reducing the operating expenses of their buildings, as they rightly should. But at the same time, the customer experience expectations are going up, like you said at the outset. So how are so in the money that they are spending, how are they trying to do that?
Well, they're spending money to increase the speed of delivery to their customers. So that does speak to automation a little bit. You know, but a lot of it too, and like I said, having the product in the right place. So planning and inventory management. And then uh, accuracy is a huge issue, right? Whether it's in your store having inventory accurate or getting the right thing to a person directly. So that can be managed through software and certain types of mechatronics. But right now we're just seeing that it used to be just for sheer volume purposes, right? And the to get product out the door with the labor that was available, people were, and this is just right after COVID. People were just spending money like crazy, right? To automate processes to get stuff out the door. And now they're looking at more of incremental investments to their existing buildings because again, they're not moving towards brand new greenfield DCs as much as they used to. So it's got to be something that can fit in my existing footprint or easily, be added to give me, more uh, volume and throughput through the existing infrastructure. In doing that, you can't go in with big bang, automation all the time. You have to talk about, automated mobile robots or highly dense automated storage and retrieval systems. So, and it's interesting because while that's happening and talking about, the discussion we had around having more stock, there are a lot of more flexible mobile automation that can fit in a brownfield facility easier, fast, and it can be implemented faster than the bolted down type of equipment that we used to put in buildings. I mean, that's still happening, but there's things like it used to be where you would have what we call a mini load, which holds inventory, kind of bulk inventory, supplemental inventory, and those were it was huge pieces of steel rack bolted to the ground, very expensive and took a long time to implement. But now we have simplified racking structure with mobile robots going in, and we even are seeing those types of products be able to go up to 24 meters or 78 feet
Oh
high.
wow.
So they can even go in a new building, really high building, but they can certainly accommodate a building that has a smaller ceiling height. So there's lots of new things in the flexible automation world that can solve problems inside of an existing building. They just tend to be smaller in size. And so I think that companies like Dematic, it's been a big shift, right? Where our projects used to be really large, our customers now are buying more of smaller spend type projects. So that's where we're seeing a big shift. And that's been consistent actually for the last couple of years.
Right. And so the operative word there is flexibility. People are wanting to
Mm-hmm.
put in
Mm-hmm.
technology that is flexible, that doesn't paint them into a corner in any of these buildings. I'm curious to Kim, from a financing perspective, going back to the interest rate conversation, how are the retailers looking to finance these? Is it still through CapEx, or are they looking at these installations more through like an OpEx type model?
Yeah, there definitely when you're talking about mobile robots, the robots as a service is definitely an option that people look at.
Mm,
Same for software. Software as a service is gaining, well, actually it's been very popular. So now we're starting to have like people look at how can I do my automation on the same kind of model with robots as a service. So that, has gained in popularity as well. Um, Definitely. So it's an easier entry point. I can get in without a lot of front front money or money up front. And
mhm.
then, if I need to add more or take away, I can, adjust. So,
Got it. So you mentioned AI. Now, to me, the AI, everything you said is not, even though we were kind of joking before that, yeah, 2026 is going to be vanilla. I'm not surprised at all by anything you said. And I think the elephant
yeah.
in the room is really, AI because, everyone's talking about it. The question is it real yet? And I'm going to make a bold prediction here, and I want to see what you think. I want to get your reaction because I know you always take me to task on what I say. And I really
Okay.
appreciate that about you. So, you know, I think that agentic AI particularly is going to hit warehouse operations faster than any other part of a retailer's workforce. And so, do you think I'm right about that? Am I getting ahead of myself? What is your take on that? How wrong or how right am I?
I actually think you're right.
You do.
Um, yeah, and I won't say that it's there yet, right, fully.
No.
And people are starting to work on it. Companies like ourselves, like we're starting to integrate AI or working to integrate AI. The reason that it makes sense inside of a distribution center warehouse is because we have so many things that can be measured, right? We can measure rates and speeds of conveyor, and we can measure the throughput of the overall building. We can measure how many people are on staff and what are they doing, are they being efficient or effective? It's There are so many places that you can measure and then therefore use that information to say, oh, I learned this. If I do this, what will happen? When you can experiment with digital twins too, right, as a part of the equation. But the amount of data that comes through a distribution center, I don't think people understand. Like there's a ton of information that comes through our systems. And if you're using that better, like right now, everybody, we give data back to customers. They get data from their warehouse management system as well. But then there's a whole team of people that sit around and look at that data and try to figure out what it's telling them and what they should be doing about it. And there's a whole support staff built around that. And when you think about what AI can do to make those people their work more efficient, completely, like I think it has there's a whole lot of good that can come out of that, I guess is what I'm trying to say. A huge impact.
Well, I mean, I love that because I've never thought about that too. Like you're dead right. Like warehouses are run by engine nerds. They are.
Yeah.
They're run by engineers, and so they're the
I
ones
thought
most
you just said engine nerds.
I did. I did. I did say
Oh,
engineers, and then I changed it to engineers. But yes, like
because they're
intentionally,
our
because I was
friends, Chris. Don't be mean to
no,
them.
right. But hey, we're all friends here. But that's true. And so they're the people that have the greatest proclivity to understand and how to use AI. And you're right. Everything inside a warehouse is absolutely tracked down to, every nth degree.
Right.
And I'm curious too. My next question though, Kim, is like, there's still a lot of people that work in a warehouse. Did it through your research that you've done, your surveys you've conducted, did you get a sense of like, how many people are doing what types of jobs inside
Yeah.
these warehouses as well?
Yeah, we did. And I'd love to invite anybody that would like to talk to me about this further, reach out to me at Dematic, or we'll talk about that at the end. But we do these to help not only our company understand how to address the needs of our customers, but also to inform our customers, what's going on. But we found, first of all, and then this is consistent across the board in our vertical markets that we follow, but consistently the highest number of people that are using a warehouse are in the picking order fulfillment part of the work. Because it's the most complex. It's where I'm handling an each and not a case and not a pallet usually. And I'm putting together an order, whether it be going to a store or to somebody's house. So that is the highest amount of labor. The second is in shipping and outbound activities, packing, shipping, outbound activities. But what we found, which was kind of blew my socks off when we got this last report back, was that, and we looked across four major verticals: general merchandise, grocery, food and beverage, and durable manufacturing. Of all of those verticals, a third of their headcount in a distribution center is for support functions. So it's the
Oh,
stuff I was talking to you about, looking at where am I, all that data, what do I do with it? And then which is talking about inventory control, order management, where do I staff people? Where do I need to make moves for inventory? All that. It's all a third of the headcount is in support functions. And it's the lowest amount of people in that group was one of the lowest amounts. I think it was the third lowest was maintenance staff, which you would have thought when you talk about support in a building, you're thinking, oh, I got a bunch of maintenance people around. That wasn't the case. It was more in the, managing the operations type of thing.
So Kim, my hunch is like these people are like working spreadsheets, looking at data to
Yeah.
try to decide what best actions to take inside the building, things that feel almost tailor made for agentic AI as it's defined.
Mhm. Yeah. And that's why I think there's going to be some really cool opportunities coming forward. And, as people get their products solidified, and there's just a ton of opportunity there to help our customers be more efficient. And when you're more efficient, you have that data available, you're more agile, and it speaks back to those hitting those customer service levels. I can make decisions faster. I can impact change for my customer faster. There's going to be a lot of things I think that'll be really exciting with software and AI coming up in the next few years.
Okay, so Kim, you said you don't think it's going to happen this year. We won't see a big impact this year, but like at what point do you think we'll see this impact where maybe, that third number starts to, be looked at very hard and people start to take action on it in some way, shape, or form?
Yeah, I think we're going to start then towards the ends of this year seeing some impact, but more into 2027. And there's a lot of focus now going on within companies like ours where our customer service or lifecycle services team are doing a lot of work to support our customers around those topics, and not just on spare parts and maintaining your equipment. We're getting more into how do we support you from, like I said, the being able to see what's going on inside your building, eventually what's connecting outside your four walls. So that just will continue to grow. And I think we're going to see an interesting market into next year.
Wow. Wow. Really good stuff, man. So okay, so if I take a pause for a sec, just kind of recap where we are for the audience. We've talked about technology, we've talked about automation, we've talked about AI, but there's more and more piece of the puzzle that I like to get your thoughts on every year when we interview you, Kim. And it honestly, I think it's a topic that's still front and center in the minds of so many retailers, and that is where do I actually want to fulfill my orders from? And now I know you're hosting a panel on this very topic at RELA coming up soon. And it's been one of my favorite topics for years. And it honestly, I don't think it's going away. So the question is that every retailer is asking themselves is, do I fulfill online orders from my stores or from dedicated fulfillment centers? So do you think we're going to see fewer or more retailers in 2026 trying to fulfill orders from stores?
I think more. The
More.
trend has been to continue to have the retail store act as a fulfillment location for our retailers. And the panel that I'm hosting, we're actually going to kind of have two different views. One is from the UK, and it's a grocer that's using a traditional micro fulfillment center to fill their orders. And again, I mentioned earlier, the market in the UK is very different than the market in the Americas. You
Yeah.
have a much more concentrated population. You have rules that, are set for people when they can get orders, et cetera, and they're all used to that.
Mhm.
So, but we're asking their perspective on how did they get to the decision to use automation? What were the parameters that helped guide them to that? Versus our Dick's Sporting Goods will be joining us on the panel as well, where Dick's is using their floor inventory in a very effective way to fill orders for their customers. And they're going to kind of present their pros and cons and why they came to the conclusion they did, how they made how they made the decision, which I think is really important to people because you got to look at a lot of things to decide what you want to do. And that's what we're hoping to bring to the audience. But the and again, one of the key drivers we found in our VOC was speed of delivery for making sure my customers happy. Speed of delivery, response time continues to be pushed and pushed and pushed, right? So because of that, that getting that inventory in a forward footprint um, is continuing to be something that customers are looking at. It is a pain to do that though. Because inventory in a store is so hard to monitor, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've said this probably 2 years ago. There's a store that I don't go to anymore. I used to go to, and I won't name them, but it used to be so contentious going in and trying to shop where the person that's their store employee shopping for somebody else that isn't in that building gets priority over my inventory that I'm trying to get. So it's not easy, right? You've got a service level in your store and a service level for your online customers both have to be considered, you know? So I think nobody's perfect yet, but I think there's a lot of retailers that are doing a pretty good job.
So I'm curious then, like, so, in your mind as an expert, if I'm trying to decide where to invest, so either, store fulfillment, micro fulfillment, or upstream with traditional fulfillment centers, which it sounds like that's probably not in the reality. The last one's probably not in the reality stream, at least in the short term. What factors should I think about as I try to make that decision? So, traditional store fulfillment versus micro fulfillment, either nearby or in the store. What factors should I consider?
Well, I think, well, first of all, again, what are your goals in your customer service,
Hmm.
your SLAs, right? Service level agreements that you want to keep. Also, how easy is it for you to keep inventory in your store? Um, and that can be regionally different. Like if you think about a city,
Right.
a store in
Right.
a city which has no back room,
Right.
versus a store in the suburbs, that's a different strategy. So, and some of our large big box stores, and Dick's Sporting Goods is an example, right? They have big stores. They have room to store inventory. We have a customer over in France that has a huge back room, and all we use that for order fulfillment, replenishment they actually use automation to replenish product to the store floor every morning, which is kind of cool. So it kind of depends on the size of your stores, where you're located, how much room you've got, and are you willing to, because the most expensive place to hold your product is in your store, right? So the factors of store, the carrying costs of inventory also have to be looked at. But yeah, so there's a lot of things to think about. I think in addition to seeing the store fulfillment become more important, again, I think I mentioned this last year, we're continuing to see a growth in smaller distribution centers, not these huge monolithic 500,000 square feet buildings, right? We're seeing them shrink, but get into closer to an urban area, to service also as an e-commerce fulfillment, just completely fulfillment, no store replen, just fulfillment centers. And those continue to grow. So I think it's, you've got to look at where you're located, who you're trying to serve, what kind of stores you've got, um, and your transportation costs, all of that has to go into consideration.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really just math at the end of the day. You got to look at the
It's just
volume you
math. It's
expect.
just
It's just
money.
math, right? It's just math. Yeah. I mean, you got to look at the volumes you expect and
Yeah.
and what expectations you think your customers are going to have. And then you got to make some hard choices about what you want to do and don't want to do to meet those
Mhm.
SLAs. I think it's well said. All right, Kim, let's bring this interview home. We're going to ask you for some practical advice. And of course, because it's the name of the show, we're going to ask you for a confession too. Um, so first of all, what's one step you would advise for someone who wants to move from like if they, I imagine a lot of retailers listening are like, God, I feel stuck in survival mode right now, but I
Yeah.
want to move to strategic improvement. Like, what's
Yeah.
one piece of advice you would have for them?
Yeah. I think you need to think about finding a partner that can walk you through the different steps. So again, for instance, not all, and it's like you can't put a square peg in a round hole, right? Don't try to do that. Understand that you're a round hole and that you need something that will work where I am today and where I'm going to go tomorrow. So either partnering with a company like Dematic that can supply, we have the engineering resources and we have the breadth of offerings through products that we either make or we partner with, to help you figure that out. And we can look at what do you want to do today, the next 3 years? What do you want to do 5 years from now? How do we start to plan for that? There are also consultants in the industry that do that as well. Um, but you have to kind of know what you're starting with and where you want to get to be. What is the number one thing you're trying to solve for? Right now, at our voice of customer service, our voice of customer, the number one thing that they're trying to solve for is reducing the cost per unit handled in their buildings. The number two thing, meeting customer expectations on speed of delivery, accuracy, etc. So they've got two things that are almost contradictory to each other.
Diametrically opposed, right?
Yes, right. So, like if I had a magic bullet, I would tell you what it was, but it's a complex problem, and you need to partner with a company that can help you with it. Understand your baseline. I say this every time we're on the phone. Your baseline goals and your baseline data, right? What are you doing today? What do you want to be able to do tomorrow and next year? And then, and then work with somebody that can help you down that path.
All right, Kim, it's confession time. I actually want
Oh,
to
I
push you
know.
on that answer a little bit, but I'm going to hold it for the confession because I might still push it depending on what you say here. So the confession question, the uncomfortable truth here, Kim. My question is, what is the uncomfortable truth about warehouse operations that most retailers don't want to admit or to hear?
I think things are still, I want to say clunky. There's still so much room for efficiency gains, uh, that, and again, I can't blame the retailers for this, right?
No.
Again, the constant change. Everything is changing all the time.
Mhm.
So, but it's clunky. It's clunky. Like, where should I have people? What should I be doing? Where should I have people? What should I be investing in? What does my store footprint look like versus my distribution center? It's still like not a well-oiled machine. I'm picturing like an old robot. I'm thinking of the robot from Lost in Space.
Oh my God, that one? Yeah, I remember
Yeah.
that one. Yeah. It's like
What? Wait. Danger, Will Robinson.
Danger Will Robinson. Yeah, right.
And then he
Oh my God,
falls
we just
over.
aged ourselves. Yeah. But so you're saying that's kind of your mental model for, just how much inefficiency there still is in this building. Well, that's why I held when I said I was going to press you, because what I thought you were going to say to the last question, and I think it plays into this too, is there probably is a big opportunity to look at the deployment of AI strategically inside of your building sooner rather than later. Because, like Angie Brown, the CIO of Home Depot, told us, and it's sticking with me, and I'm repeating it every time I get the chance. She told us, Kim, she said, AI enables us to do the things that were previously impossible or just took too many people to get them
Yeah.
done. And I think that is entirely applicable in a warehouse
Yeah.
operation, especially given that you said it's clunky. And it is. Everything,
Right.
and that's no one's fault. It's just that's how we had to get the job done. And
Right.
now the tools and the resources are out there to potentially streamline that and to show us new ways of doing business. So I'm curious, my last question for you
You
is,
sure it's the last?
yeah, no, this is the last.
And it's no more confessions.
No, this is the last one. This is the last
Okay.
one. Wrap it all up for us. If people listening could remember one thing to act on, what would it be?
Look for ways to improve that clunkiness, right? And it can exist in the warehouse, the store, everywhere. But where are the biggest places that are impacting your bottom line and your service level to your customer? And then find companies that can help you work through that. That would be my biggest piece of advice.
That I mean, that's my takeaway from listening to this. If I was still in the retail business and still an executive at a high level, I would be
Yeah.
looking at my P&L and looking at my expenses and being like, where can AI make the biggest hit immediately? And let's go after that and see what we can do. And God knows we actually might surprise ourselves. So, all right.
Right.
So you said you're going to be hosting a panel at Rela. So if you're
Yes.
out there, if you're out there, listeners, go and check Kim out. She's going to be talking about this with some really great folks, and it sounds like a
Yeah.
really exciting topic. But Kim, if people want to get in touch with you, pick your brain, attend that session too, how can they find you or find out more?
I'm on LinkedIn, so Kim Baudry on LinkedIn is a really good way I talk to people a lot over LinkedIn. Of course, through my email. And again, if you want me to spell it out, I will. It's long, Kimberly, but it's Kim. Remember this, every year I have to do this too.
Yes.
Kimberley. It's special. Dot Baudry, Baudry at Dematic.com.
Nice.
Anytime. I love talking to people. I love to hear from our customers. It's one of the really big highlights of what I do, and the team that works with me does. We learn every time we talk to somebody. So I really invite anybody that's interested, reach out. Love to speak to you.
Awesome. Well, Kim Baudry of Dematic, thank you so much for joining us on Confessions of a Supply Chain Executive. I absolutely love when we do this every year. And we've done this, I think this is our third or fourth year in a row doing this, right, Kim?
I think it's got to be at least 4, Chris.
Yeah, I think so too. So thank you so much, Kim. All the best. Today's podcast has been produced by Ella Siriord. I'm Chris Walton. This has been Confessions of a Supply Chain Executive. Never forget, OmniTalk fans, confessions are almost always good for the soul. Be careful out there.